Hi, my name is Brian Burgans.
And I'm Rick Betancourt.
Welcome to Homeownership Heroes.
So what are we going to discuss today, Brian? We got some great episodes. Let's talk about something really cool. How about when our active duty soldiers are transitioning out and they've got a new job?
Yeah, so, and I'm sure if you've been in this world long enough, you will have ran into the scenario where you have a transitioning military member.
Yep.
Obviously, you're filling out your 1003. You got, Army, and now they're going and working into the civilian world.
And I think it's important. It's that soldier who's transitioning out within 12 months,
Yep.
less than 12 months. You know, you're taking the 1003, and then about 6 months from now, they're going to be ETSing out.
Yep.
They're going to be discharged, and they're going into civilian life. And now comes a question under the Chapter 4
Yep.
guidelines: is what do we do about the employment and the income situation? How do we handle this situation?
Yeah, and so typically an underwriter might look at it like, hey, does this transitioning employment fit what they did in the military?
Yeah, it's called continuity of employment, is what we kind of did in the mortgage world. What we discuss is our underwriters, they want to talk about continuity of employment.
Yep.
So I think this is where you really got to go to bat. This is where you really need to understand, hey, what was your MOS? What were you doing in the military? Kind of have that soldier elaborate quite a bit on what all their job responsibilities were, because someone says, well, I was a combat engineer. Okay, what else did you? What was your rank? Did you oversee personnel? Because if you're going into the new civilian world, it's important to have that connection.
Without a doubt. And so people got to realize two things with a military member. There's their MOS, and then there's also their rank.
Correct.
Right? So these two things can be used to help you validate what they're going to do in the civilian sector.
It's solidifying your argument with your team that, listen, what this hero was doing previously inside the military is very, very similar and corresponds very well with what they're doing in the civilian life.
Yeah, so give you an example. Let's say we have Sergeant Smith getting out of the, let's just say out of the Marine Corps,
Yep.
right? So Sergeant Smith was an NCO in the Marine Corps. He's getting out. He wants to be the general manager for an Office Max.
Yep.
So typically an underwriter would look at that like, what is a Marine Corps sergeant doing in an Office Max?
Because he wasn't doing Office Max kind of logistic supply work when he was in Afghanistan at a forward observation base.
Right, so how would you go to bat for that soldier?
First thing I do is I say, hey, listen, I look at his DD-214, or I talk a little bit about it. If he's not out yet, I look at his LES statement, and if I see he's got an E5, E6, E7, are you used to overseeing personnel? Well,
Sure.
yeah. Well, yes, Rick. I'm in charge of a squad or a platoon or whatnot. So you have personnel management skills right there.
Correct.
That are very, very, very similar to what would be, if not more qualified than what you're going to be doing at an Office Max. So even though he wasn't supply or logistics in the military, his skills that he learned as a soldier absolutely carry over into the civilian world, managing 3 to 5 to 10 to 15 people at an office.
Yep, without a doubt. And then you have another scenario that I see commonly a lot too, where you have a lot of people transitioning out of the military, Army, Marine Corps, becoming law enforcement.
I see it all the time in Massachusetts.
And unfortunately, we have a lot of underwriters out there who
Yes.
aren't really well versed in VA, like they do 1 or 2s a year, right? And sometimes they'll question that transitioning employment. And how would you go to war for that one?
Well, what's nice about I think the military, it's easier for me making that transitional argument from from the Army, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, Air Force into law enforcement. Very quickly, the only place that we really sometimes run into a problem is when you're in the academy, right? Mm-hmm. So if a state, like you mentioned, we were talking earlier, if a state has a probationary period, that's where I kind of get a little pushback from the underwriter, and then I kind of have to dive a little bit deeper and say, listen, how many police officers get fired on a regular basis while they're in the academy or when they get out of the academy and they're in their probationary period? It's statistically insignificant from an argumentative standpoint. So I've had very good success with that. So I really, you got to almost kind of be a private investigator at that point in time as a loan officer.
So I think the most important thing is this. Don't just look at it at face value.
No.
Understand a little bit more about what they actually did, the roles and responsibilities while they were on active duty, because as you uncover a lot, you're going to find out they did a lot more than just what their job title was.
If you're a loan officer in that situation, you're not just an application taker. You're working as a benefit administrator, helping with the benefit. You got to do a little investigative work, ask a lot more questions than what is just on that 1003 or that URL 10 that's coming out in July. You got to ask a lot more questions.
Well, hey, thank you for tuning in. We hope you found a lot of value in that. And tune in next time on Homeownership Heroes. I'm Brian Burgans.
And I'm Rick Betancourt.
We'll see you next time.
This is Mortgage News Network.